I would just easily say in one sentence, I feel at peace with myself. I'm at peace. So outside circumstances don't have an effect on me anymore. They happen. I'm not saying I'm never getting grumpy or anything or being opinionated, but I know it's my negative voice talking. That isn't me talking. But generally, I feel at peace with myself. And that, I think, has been the biggest gift ever received. Wholeheartedly, I can say that. Feel complete and whole.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Life's Second Act. This is the podcast that delves into the challenges, new directions and uncertainties that can come during midlife. And I do that through talking to people who have a story to tell, an insight to share, or a snippet of something special. My name's Simon Burgess, and in this episode I'm speaking to Susanne Kubik. Susanne is 53 and a transformative coach with an incredible story of self-discovery and empowerment. In 2014, during a 5-day group coaching program, Susanne had a breakthrough moment that changed her life. Despite a successful career spanning 30 years in prestigious corporate roles across Frankfurt and London, she realised she was living behind a mask of perfection and control and disconnected from her true self. From feeling invisible and unworthy despite external achievements, Susanne embraced a journey that helped her break free from those inner barriers, find peace, and truly feel alive for the first time. Now she's dedicated to helping other women navigate the pressures of a demanding career, guiding them to move beyond performance-driven lives and flourish through the transformative Broadband Consciousness Methodology. Susanne, welcome to the podcast, and apologies for my voice.
Thank you very much for having me. And you know what? That's fine, because that's just normal life. You know, nothing is always perfect.
Absolutely, that's very kind of you. So I think today what I'm hoping to explore is the fact that we are the most important person in our lives. But we often don't feel this, and I'm keen to explore why this happens, and I guess what we can do to change that relationship we have with ourselves. First of all, just take me back and tell me a little bit of your journey and your story.
Oh, yeah, there's so many components that probably came together. You mentioned the 2014 group coaching program I attended. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I just knew that something was missing. If you would have asked me back then, probably the answer would have been, I just want to be more successful. But there was a curiosity in this group coaching program that I've met so many other people who either have done the same coaching, and they just look different. They carried themselves differently. And my curiosity was just, what have they done? I want some of that. And so I literally jumped in, and on the first day of the course, everybody was asked to tell their story. And I didn't think I had a story. Nothing dramatic ever happened in my life. I had a good upbringing, middle-class family, the last one of 3 siblings. So I can't say that I had a terrible upbringing, but therefore I also felt like I don't have a story. And then it was me, after I was encouraged just to sort of keep on talking, sort of, unearthing something that sort of is sitting down there. And all of a sudden it was like a volcano or like a pressure cooker. The lid was lifted and I burst into tears and sobbed on my coach's shoulder uncontrollably. And I remember me thinking, well, what's happening with me? Obviously, over time and over those days, I realized I must have suppressed so many things completely unaware for years and years, for decades, taking stories on board as my truth. But it wasn't. So over those 5 days, we dismantled together as a group. But one thing became really clear: even though people had maybe a terrible upbringing or other disasters or dramas in their lives, there was an underlying commonator for all of us. And that was that the feelings that we experienced were always the same. Not visible, not good enough, not feeling significant, not feeling loved, not feeling valued, and everybody was just trying to get somewhere through their lives.
So did that surprise you when you dug into that a little bit more? Did you discover where that came from?
Yes.
Particularly?
Absolutely surprised me, shook me a little bit, made me feel a little bit wobbly. But the point was that in my family, we never spoke about feelings. So whether good feelings or bad feelings were something uncomfortable. They were brushed under the carpet. And so that not being able to express feelings, whether sadness nor even happiness, was this numbness, this you're operating on a certain level, not too high, not too low, sort of this numbness, walking through numbness throughout my life. And I think that was also the commonator with other people. We never talked about feelings. And when I had this conversation with my partner only recently, and I mentioned, at home we never talked about feelings, he kind of stopped and thought, no, neither did we.
Interesting.
We always just assumed. We assumed that we are loved, but we never heard it.
So do you think, now when you reflect on your first act, that successful career you had, how did that manifest itself? How did it show itself? When you look back now, do you think that really affected how I was in my sort of professional life?
That's a good question. This not showing feelings, especially in the corporate world, I fitted right in because I didn't do feelings. I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
So in the corporate world, you don't show feelings either. You're professional. You get on with things.
Yeah.
There's a plan in place. You behave and you fit in with those behaviors. So therefore, I felt at home. And then after the coaching, when I got in touch with my feelings and actually allowed myself to feel openly, to feel love, to feel acceptance and trust in myself, I could really see the black and white. Oh my God, I've fitted into the corporate world so perfectly, but now it does feel not necessarily coherent anymore with me, who I am. And I also then noticed how I was wearing that mask of perfection, professionalism, the drive, the need to be driven, the need to achieve the next thing, and always looking at fulfillment on the outside of me. And I think that's a common thing. We look at things outside of us, what makes us happy, what makes us feel fulfilled, but never really actually tap into us.
So on the course, was it men and women on the course?
Yes, it was mixed.
It was. Were men and women very similar, or do you think women have a slightly different kind of approach or attitude?
I feel the feelings are the same. Men feel the same things that women feel, the not enoughness. And I think for men, there is an extra burden on top because they need to be seen all the time as having it together, as being the strong one, as being the leader, as being, the provider for families. So allowing themselves to feel is seen as a weakness, where women maybe tend to be more open about feelings, communicate within their friendships more openly about feelings, where maybe communicating about how you really feel, even if you have a circle of friends within guys, it's maybe rather the kind of banter in a jokey way. That's how you probably express feelings, but you're actually not really labeling it.
Once you realised that slight shift, how easy was it for you to accept it and embrace it? Or was that a slow kind of process to change from the old Susanne to the new?
For me personally, I have to admit it was a slow process because I was so used to what I call the script, that persona, that behavior, that thinking, believing about myself. That was ingrained in me for over 40 years. So switching it and letting go of that script wasn't that easy. And I definitely practiced on a daily basis, had reminders in my diary that popped up, just reminding me who I really am. Then again, I've had most recently a conversation with someone who did the same type of coaching only this January. And she immediately let go, immediately was like, oh my God, I've been carrying around this burden all my life. That negative voice, that script, how I call it, has been the driver for making my marriage miserable, was the driver of us getting divorced, the bad relationship with my kids. And she let go of all of that and now says, I'm loving each day. And her relationship with her ex-husband is really nice, and not just friendly, but really, really pleasant. And the relationship with the new partner of her ex-husband. And so many things are possible and become easier when we let go of this burden and open ourselves up to, oh my God, this could be really simple, this thing called life.
So is that the process that you went through, and the lady you spoke about there, is that Broadband Consciousness Methodology?
That is a 5-day step-by-step process methodology that a lovely couple in Northampton came up with. Both of them had difficulties throughout their lives. Richard was very, very successful, multimillionaire, lost everything in the, I can't remember, 90s, 80s, when the interest rate went up to 28%. He was living in a mansion, he had a car collection, you name it. He thought he never had money problems ever in his life, and then lost it within 24 hours one day, going through a divorce, a costly one. And he found himself almost suicidal, sleeping in a friend's bedsit, from a mansion to a bedsit. And he thought, okay, this is it. I'm not worth, living. And he picked up his children from his ex-wife, dropped them off again in the evening. And his wife kind of said, and how are you? And he said, not good. I'm not in a good place. And she tapped him on the shoulder and said, oh, you'll get there again. And that was sort of the key driver, him walking back to his car, then again, retrieving back to his bedsit, I'll get there again. I'll get there again. He said, well, if I'm not truthfully honest, even if I had the millions and all the supercars in front of the house, I didn't think I was there. And then he started thinking about, where is there? And so he actually started writing this poem that night, going from suicidal to having this absolute light bulb moment about where is there. And all of a sudden he had no money to his name, not a penny to his name. And he felt, oh my God, I finally have arrived there.
Well,
so he started doing talks locally at the building industry, some seminars and events, met his now wife. She was personal development junkie almost, reading all the books, to Tony Robbins and this and that, and all the rah, and I need to feel better about myself. And she was tormenting herself for many, many years, needing to get better. I need to become this better person, but not feeling it. They met, and Richard was on stage and said something, I'm there. I still have things happening in my life that are maybe not that glorious, but I am okay. Even though, my family, my business, whatever is tatters, but I still feel like I'm there. And that's what stopped her in her tracks, and thought, it's not one of those gurus who says everything's great.
Yeah.
Things happen, life happens.
Yeah.
But he said, I'm finally with me. And that's the biggest gift, even though, finance is still in tatters, even this is still in tatters, my family life is still not perfect. So long story short, 20 years later, they are happily married, and they are teaching basically people. And this has evolved with them talking about it. So if we are not choosing, who is choosing for us? And that is the negative voice that is so ingrained in us, that comes from our childhood. We can, I don't know how the experts call it, but we have 5 core desired feelings that are absolutely met when we are born. You agree with me. A baby is born. I don't know if you're already grandfather, probably not. But when a baby is born, you look at that bundle and it is perfect. It hasn't got a university degree, can't talk, can't sing, can't walk, hasn't done anything, hasn't achieved anything, hasn't even got teeth. And we think it's the best thing. It's perfect. So what happens along our upbringing? When do we decide we're not perfect anymore? because the negative voice moves in and takes that perfectionism that we are away and chips away.
Yeah.
And I call that the 5 core desired feelings, and they are absolutely fully charged when we're born. That is love and being loved, significance, worthiness and validation, belonging and connection, safety and security, and acceptance and approval. And these are our core desired feelings without us having to do anything or prove anything or achieve anything. But along our upbringing, we hear things, we learn through observation from our parents, from people around us, from school, kindergarten, school, then our first jobs. And so we adapt. Oh, okay, I need to be someone different. I need to be liked, to have that acceptance. We think we need to bend and adapt our behaviors and our words. And over the years, we're so used to this bending and adapting that we think it is us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
In our lives, we're trying to top up these core desired feelings again. And looking in the wrong compartments, we're looking at this fulfillment from the outside in, instead of actually realizing, hold on, nothing has changed since we are this perfect baby.
What's interesting is that it takes us to get to midlife to start to realize this. It's a bit like, if only we could do this when we were younger. For you, when you discovered that, how did that make you feel about your past, and also how you now feel about the future, having realized what was going on?
Well, probably previously when we talk about the past first, I was regret, shame, criticism. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I finish that kind of studies? Why didn't I do better there? Why was in that relationship? There was always this regret and criticism, self-criticism. And I think that turned into just acceptance and part of the journey that took me exactly where I am.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of glad I had these experiences. Otherwise, I wouldn't be
who you are
now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's almost like a gratitude that I had that journey. Now I feel just, like the lady I spoke to earlier, Emma, who loves every day. And I think even though, you have a cold and a croaky voice or a headache, or it's a grey and drizzly day outside, I'm no longer defined by those things, because I'm complete and whole now. I'm no longer looking for something that makes me happy on the outside, if that makes sense.
See, it sounds perfect. It sounds brilliant. And I'm thinking, I want a bit of that.
You can.
But it doesn't sound like it's, maybe I'm doing myself a disservice here, but sometimes I struggle myself a little bit with giving myself permission to do something. I find really difficult, whether it's looking after yourself, whether it's buying a new shirt, whatever it might be. Sometimes I find that really, really difficult. So for people that do, what are the kinds of things that we can start to do to maybe break that cycle of negative thinking, and using your words, that script, the old script? How can we rewrite that?
Yeah, I think the main thing is realizing that we are our own best friend, or we have learned to despise ourselves or dismiss ourselves as important, or we're dismissing the importance of being us. That never comes into an equation, because we've learned to look on the outside of us. So we're dismissing this us as non-important. And I think it's starting with just being gentle with ourselves, acknowledging how far we've come, acknowledging these things like, bloody hell, I'm managing my life every day. You're providing for a family, and you're being a father, and you're doing your job, and you're a loving husband, and you care for people, and making yourself feel good about these things, acknowledging yourself, not just in achievement and the level of our bank accounts, but just in day-to-day things. We are managing so many things on a day-to-day basis. We're getting up, we're looking after our homes, we're looking after family members, we're doing our jobs, and acknowledging that and just being gentle with ourselves, and also acknowledging when we are not 100%, to allow ourselves to say, you know what, it's okay to put my feet up.
It's so hard because I think society tells us we need to be doing different things at different times. This is what you do in the morning. This is when you do that. This is what time you should go to work and finish work, or whatever it might be. So it's so hard to fight against that, though, isn't it?
This letting go, and for example, I was eventually diagnosed with burnout, and what I realized is the burnout, it was this head battle. My body wasn't functioning anymore. There was no energy anymore. My body was literally just flat and just wanted to rest and recover. And now, obviously, throughout the coaching, I'm very more sensitive of the voice in my head and who I really am. So the script is the negative voice, and it will always make you feel, sorry, can I say that loud? Shit. You can cut that me out. The negative voice, that's why we call it the negative voice, is never supportive. The negative voice will never say, oh, okay, have 5 minutes, but then you get on with it again. So this inner battle, yes, it takes a little bit of practice, and that's why I call it a practice. Like meditation is a practice of noticing what's happening up here and then choosing the opposite. And it's literally deliberately choosing the opposite. I practiced that over months and years, literally practicing. Oh, hold on a minute. When I felt low energy, negative, grumpy, scripts alert. What would I choose instead?
Yeah.
It is literally that physical hand on your heart and noticing yourself and being gentle with yourself. I'm not a robot. I'm not a machine. I'm a human being.
Do you find men or women are better at embracing that?
Nope. Same thing. Women have exactly learned the same thing. Pulling you together, getting on with it, not being seen. If you show emotions, you're being seen as weak. We don't want to be weak. But actually, there's nothing wrong with being weak. I'm happy now to say, you know what is it that I really need? And I take that for me. And I'm creating this space for me. Sometimes, well, we see probably often now in social media and in magazines or whatever articles, you have to set boundaries. I have a little bit of problem with that because nobody is creating this space for ourselves first. Again, these boundaries is you are waiting for someone else to give you permission. You have to give yourself permission and value yourself first, create that space for you, and then you can set boundaries. But you need to see the value in you. Acknowledge ourselves, I think, is the main thing.
So acknowledging that we've got this relationship with ourselves that maybe isn't perfect. We're not giving as much love to ourselves as we should. We've got the wrong script, or a script that served us well to a degree, but now we're realizing in midlife that actually it's not serving in quite the same way. What are some of those things that we can do to really open up and embrace this period in our lives and not just think, oh, we're done? I know some people are very good and very positive, but there's a lot of people, I think, that do struggle a little bit with that kind of midlife shift. So what are some of those things you think we can do, Susanne?
Well, if we acknowledge that midlife shift and we notice there's something, we want to go in a different direction, but we don't know how, I think that's a fantastic sign. It's great. It's a positive sign in my eyes, because it is that first sign of waking up. We acknowledge that what we've done for the last 20 or 30 years is trotting on in one direction, being the good work soldier, is not fulfilling us. All of a sudden, we think there must be more to life.
Yeah.
And I think that is the first sign of waking up. And when we talked about midlife crisis, I'm thinking, yeah, bring it on. we need more people driving Porsches. It is this waking up, like, oh my God, I've dismissed myself to pleasing others, parents mainly, to start with, and then obviously work, and then spouses and families, and the need to fit in and to belong. But also coming back to getting unstuck and actually realizing, instead of searching again for outside of us, the next thing to do is maybe realizing that we are exactly where we need to be, and not making this right or wrong. This is it. This life's happening. Hours are going, days are going, weeks, months pass, years pass, but we think we need to constantly be on the move to do something. And actually, no, we don't. First thing is to acknowledge where we are, what we've done, maybe taking stock and being not critical again, but taking stock in, oh my God, I've done so many things in my life. I've achieved so much, from where you were a student or when you just first left mum and dad's house, and, look back at what you've achieved and be really proud of that. Think, bloody hell, I'm Superman.
Yeah.
Acknowledging things in a positive light, being proud of that.
I do like that. So we are where we're meant to be, but you've got to give yourself some space and time as well, haven't you? So embracing stillness is important.
Yeah. Well, I've developed over the years a routine for me, which is the morning. I will get up at least half an hour earlier than everybody else, and I will have my cup of coffee. And yes, I will do my meditation, or might sometimes just sit there in stillness. And I also have you can do that annually, your reflections. You can do it quarterly. I have this thing that helps me. It's almost like like an anchor in my diary. The new moon, the full moon, you might think, oh, it's a little bit too woo-woo, but it's just an anchor. Whatever date works for you, whether the first of the month or the last of the month, it doesn't matter at all. And it is literally just reflecting back, okay, what happened? How did it go? How did I feel? And then also setting intentions. It's not about the goal setting. Setting intentions is, how do I want to feel? What is it that I want to experience? It's not about the ticking off the next goalpost, because that makes us feel empty again. But it is exactly about the experiences.
Yeah.
And also realizing that, life isn't a race. We have learned from early on, we need to hurry up. We need to be better than other people in school. We need to have the grades to then get into university. There was always a rush. Mm-hmm. And I just want to actually share a conversation I had with my cousin last weekend and his wife. Both kids are just in their 20s. The daughter finished her bachelor's, and their son decided 2 years into university that it wasn't for him. And he decided to do some sort of trainee, apprentice, something else. And it was my cousin who almost was apologetic towards me. She didn't do her master's, but she felt pregnant during her second year at university. So her finishing with a bachelor's, well done. And now she actually is enjoying motherhood. No, that wasn't planned, obviously, but that's just how life happens. And it was my cousin and his wife almost like tiptoeing around, feeling almost a little bit ashamed that their kids are not doing the usual straight line, professional, have university finishing with a master's and then going off to a proper job. And I said, you know what, we have learned to do it the proper way, not the life way. And all of a sudden, their uncomfortableness, my cousin's and his wife's uncomfortableness eased off. I said, we have learned to look good to other people, not to what we want to do. But isn't it fantastic that now your kids can choose? And I think that we are now moving into maybe hopefully into a different age where our kids can choose, okay, testing and trialing and having these experiences, because our generation, we were classified as failure if we didn't, do the racing thing, the normal path. And that's where we struggle these days, like letting go, because we're not used to it.
So bearing in mind what you've learned about yourself, you had a transitional moment back in 2014. Do you now feel that you really have reconnected with your true self? And how does that show up? How do you know that?
I would just easily say in one sentence, I feel at peace with myself. I'm at peace. So outside circumstances don't have an effect on me anymore. They happen. I'm not saying I'm never getting grumpy or anything, but I know it's my negative voice talking. That isn't me talking. But generally, I feel at peace with myself. And that, I think, has been the biggest gift ever received. Wholeheartedly, I can say that, yeah.
So what would you say to people that do feel stuck in that with that old script? What kind of closing thoughts might you say to people in that position?
It's mainly about being gentle with ourselves, differentiating between the negative voice and that little inner whisper that's there. That little whisper that wants to come out. That is a little bit rebelling, like, let me out. I felt that for many years. I knew there was a whisper. I knew there was more to me than what I could feel and sense and operate with. There was something else in there that has been boxed in and buried in there. If someone feels that there is a little whisper, whether that is a desire of wanting to be an artist or taking up running or whatever it is that desire is there, tap into that. Tap into that desire that's there. Don't dismiss it. That is the real us. That negative voice that tells us everything has to be proper, be a professional, get on with it. That's just what we have learned. But our essence is that little whisper that's in there, that is full of curiosity and playfulness.
What would you say to the young Susanne? Now you've learned what you've learned. What would you say to your younger self as you maybe left school, college, university? What would you say to yourself?
Yeah, I think I was probably like so many others. I was struggling with this feeling incomplete and inadequate. I felt always inadequate, almost embarrassed about being me. A non-achiever, the black sheep of the family, invisible. I would probably tell her, follow your intuition and everything is going to work out the way you imagine it to be. I'm a firm believer in visualization, and so many things I had in the back of my head as a little dream, and they all became true. Whether that was me playing pretend. So I lived in America for a little while, and my English was very American, but also just conversational. I had a job in Frankfurt, and I had this flat that was high ceilings and fishbone wooden flooring, very, very old and almost like rotten, but it was spacious. And I was playing pretend in that flat that one day, I will be working and living in an English-speaking country, and I will be sitting around a board, office environment, boardroom, and I will be able to articulate myself in a professional manner, and I will be eloquently speaking in English and will contribute to the conversation. And and then a few years later, my company in Frankfurt claimed insolvency, and there was me and my Australian boyfriend at the time. What are we doing now? And I said, okay, let's just pack up and go. So, and then history is I'm sitting here, and and I had so many things that were always in the back of my head. One day, I said, wouldn't that be possible? I think if we open ourselves up to, it's not even possible. We then see possibilities, and that, again, is getting us unstuck, nurturing that curiosity, nurturing that little whisper that's there. Take a pen and paper and write it out. Nobody else needs to see that, but tapping into your deepest desires, whatever that may be.
So you, I think, have definitely embraced your second act. You sound like you've moved from your first act in that corporate career to what you're doing now. How does that feel, and what have you got to look forward to as you move forward?
Oh, I don't know what to look forward to be honest. I think I'm just so excited to see what's going to happen. Obviously, with my coaching and sharing everything that I've gone through and sharing that with other people is one of my heart's desires, because there's too many of us just walking around with our head down, and it needs to change. And I want other women and men to actually have that feeling of feeling alive.
Yeah.
And creating their lives. And regardless of what age that is, especially those people, women who think that the corporate job and the job title is all there is to them. There is so much more to us.
Yeah, shifting that label, losing that label.
Losing that label, losing that mask, and finally, that heavy wand, let that go. Yeah, so with the coaching, I've got lots of ideas. Obviously, I want to do retreats and courses, but also bringing people together who feel that they're alone on their journey and make sure that they're not. My aim is to build a community. But then also my aim is to get women in the driver's seat with the coaching and also with my other little idea. So I'm very, very fortunate, very, very fortunate that I can drive, and I'm driving a really nice, fat, fast car. I drive a Cobra, 7-litre, 500 horsepower. It's a bit of a roaring machine. And, well, let me rewind. My partner is a proper petrol head. It's not about new cars and fancy cars. It's about classic cars for him. And I was always sort of the SUV woman. I need a little bit metal around me. I need that, safety and that kind of prestige kind of thing. And then he set me in one of his cars, which is a MGB racing special. And he taught me driving like proper, like flooring it. He was holding my hand when I wanted to shift gears going on the motorway. He's like, no, floor it, and now you're shifting. And then again, like, no, floor it. And all of a sudden, my face lit up, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I could do this every day. That was so much fun. And we were watching Top Gear or something, and one of the guys were wearing James May, I think it is.
Yeah. He
was wearing some goggles with a chrome and then the creamy leather round it. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, they're the most amazing goggles. So for Christmas, I got those goggles. I'm sitting there because most of the cars in our garage don't even have a windscreen. That's why you need goggles. And it's like the excitement you get from other people, whether it's just cyclists or other cars, and going like, yeah. And I sit there with my pink bomber hat and go like, motorway. It's so much fun.
Fantastic.
Every time me and my partner went out driving, I'm driving a car, he's driving another car. And then we would have family get-togethers, and I would always see, the nieces or the sister owning the car, but sitting on the passenger seat, and the partner would drive, and I would grind my teeth. And then we would go to any sort of shows, whether it's Goodwood or any other car shows, and have conversations with car dealers. And I would actually ask, so do you have any women who purchase cars from you? Yeah, we do. And funny enough, then it was down the road, a neighbour, lawyer from London, she said, I'm really, really tempted to get a Cobra myself. And she did. And then it was her husband driving. So I thought, this needs to change. So therefore, I was spinning this idea to my partner. I said, you know what? I came up with this name, motoristas. It's kind of ballerinas, motoristas. Yeah. And I've created this logo, and I'm just finishing the website. And the aim is to bring women together, driving their cars, not their husbands, and just having a fun day out. It's not about, racing along the motorway, but just having a good time out, taking our cars out, doing a little country lane run, meet someone for lunch, and then driving back. So I'm planning now with a vineyard in Kent, our first outing. So I just need to finish up my website and have a little bit of a story of the other founders that are on there, which is my partner's sister and niece. And but for next year, I'm hoping to at least get a couple of events in now.
Fantastic.
There's lots of ideas spinning around, helping women to get more comfortable driving their cars, with maybe having a female driving instructor coming along, or giving talks, or doing it then at the RAC club, or so something that came up as an idea. And if I wouldn't have followed that notion, is that even possible? I would have thought, my negative order would have said, don't be silly. Women don't do that.
Susanne, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this. Lovely to speak to you, and I'm so chuffed for you with your new project. That sounds like fun.
Thank you, Simon. It was a pleasure. Really enjoyed that. Thank you for having me.
First of all, apologies for my voice in that episode not feeling great at the time of recording, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity of chatting to Susanne. So I believe, if nothing else, this conversation has confirmed my thoughts about taking a step back from those inherited scripts to give ourselves a chance to live a little bit more authentically. Whether it's embracing our core emotions, granting ourselves permission to prioritise self-care, or simply sitting in stillness to rediscover our true selves, I think Susanne demonstrates that transformation is attainable at any stage of life. So as I conclude this show, let's remember Susanne's encouragement to listen to that quiet inner voice, nurture our curiosity, and celebrate the unique journey that is our own. And of course, there's so much more to Susanne, so please explore the show notes to learn more about Susanne and what she's up to. But until next time, be kind to yourself and maybe take a step towards embracing the authentic version of yourself. But until then, take care and goodbye.